Hello! Today I'm going to be showing you how you can export your Shopify orders in bulk to a CSV or Excel file using the Matrixify app. So let's get started. Here I am in the Matrixify app. To be able to export our orders, we must create a new export. To do so, click on New Export. Here I am in a new export page. Now we're first going to start off by looking at the format in which we'd like to export. Now there are many different export formats. If you click on the format drop-down, you'll see all of the different formats that we offer. Now under Matrixify Excel and Matrixify CSV, you'll see a bunch of different custom formats. We don't need to be looking at these, but the ones that we do need to be looking at are Matrixify Excel and Matrixify CSV. If you are exporting data that is over the Excel limit, so for example over 1 million rows, then we would recommend exporting in the CSV format, as the CSV format does not have such limitations. However, the Excel format tends to be a lot more user-friendly than the CSV format. If you do export in Excel and the data that you're exporting is over the Excel limit, do not worry because Matrixify will automatically switch the export to the CSV format if the file is over 500,000 rows. You can really export in whichever format you would like though, and whichever is best for your own requirements. But in my case, I will be exporting it in the Excel format, so I'm going to select Matrixify Excel as my export format. Then moving on to the sheets. Now if you click the Select Sheets drop-down, we'll be able to select which entity we'd like to export. In our case, we're going to be exporting orders, so check the orders checkbox. Then, if we click on the orders drop-down, we'll be able to see all of the different column groups you can export for orders. Now you can pick and choose which column groups you'd like to export, so for example, you can choose not to export customers or not to export refunds. It's completely up to you. You can also further refine the export by clicking on each column group separately. There you'll be able to see the exact columns that will be exported when checking that column group. So for example, for basic columns, here you'll see all of the different columns that will be exported if you're exporting the basic columns group. You can then select to not export certain columns if you do not wish for them to be in your export. However, in my case, I will be exporting all columns, so I'm going to leave this all selected. And now to go through each column group just to explain what they are a little bit. Basic columns are all of the basic data for the orders. Customers would be customers linked to the order, as well as companies. Companies would be companies linked to the order. You may also notice that there is a slow tag by companies. This just means that if you export any data to do with companies for your orders, then it will take longer to export. Then we have line type. Line type explains what each row exported for the order does. I'll go into this in more detail once we have exported our orders, as in it will be more clear as to how exactly this column group works. Then we have line items. This would be all data about the line items linked to the order. Then we have line items product data. Now this differs from line items because line items product data is not product data stored for the order, however it's product data stored for the product in your Shopify admin currently. Line items holds the data stored for the line item when the order was created. Then we have refunds, transactions, fulfillments, which would be refunds, transactions and fulfillments for the order if they do have refunds, transactions or fulfillments. And then lastly, we have meta fields. Each of these column groups allow for customization. Just the same as we had with basic columns, you can also select to export only specific columns from each of these groups. In total, you can export 218 columns with Matrixify, and that's not including meta fields, as Matrixify cannot guess how many meta fields you have in store. So if you have meta fields, then even more columns will be exported. For the base columns, which are 218 columns, which spans from basic columns to fulfillments, we do offer documentation which explains each column that we offer in detail, what their values are and how they can be used. And I will definitely make sure to leave a link in the description of this video to that documentation, so when building this export you can reference it and look to what columns you would want in your exported file. And then moving down, you'll be able to see a drop down which is Customize Columns. If you click this drop down, you'll be able to see all of the columns that we've selected to be exported. What Customize Columns allows you to do is it allows you to change the order in which the columns are exported. So to change the order, it would be as simple as clicking on the column that you would like to change the order of and placing it where you'd like it to be exported. So for example, if I'd want the number column to be exported as the first column, I'd just drag it and drop it to be first. You can also do this with any other column in the file. Just drag and drop the column to where you'd like to see it exported in your exported file. Customize columns also allows you to remove columns. So to do so, just click on the little X by the column name, and it will then remove the column from being exported in your exported file. Then below Customize columns, you'll be able to see a filter button. Filters allow you to export only specific orders that match the filters. So here you can see a list of all of the filters that we offer to export your orders by. I'll also leave a link in the description of this video to all of these filters that we offer, how to use them and what their value should be for export. In my case, I will not be adding a filter this time, but just so you know, if you do want to export only specific orders, then you can use these filters for export. Matrixify also offers a really cool filter for metafields, which allows you to filter to export only specific metafields in your exported file. So to do so, you'd click on the metafields drop-down, and here you'll be able to see a little pencil icon by metafield. Click on it, and here you'll be able to see to include metafields where they have a specific namespace. So here you'd add the namespaces or namespace. If adding namespaces, you'd add the metafield namespace separated by a comma. You can also filter by key or by metafield type, and here you'll be able to see all of the different metafield types. It's completely up to you. Matrixify also allows you to exclude metafields from your exported file that don't have values as well. So this is just a handy thing to keep in mind, as Matrixify does let you export only specific metafields when exporting your orders as well. To mention, it's also possible to filter your export directly from your Shopify admin. So here I am in my Shopify admin, and you can see all of the orders that I have in my Shopify admin. So say for example, I'd only like to export 3 orders from here. So I'll go ahead and select those 3 orders now. And then to only export these 3 orders with Matrixify, you'd click on the 3 dots and press Export Selected with Matrixify. This will automatically create a new export for you within Matrixify. And as you can see, it's added the ID filter with the 3 order IDs that I had filtered by in my Shopify admin. So basically, it will automatically add the filter for you for which orders you'd like to export. So just a note, that's a handy trick that you can use if you'd like to export directly from your Shopify admin interface. Moving back to the export that we were previously creating, we can now move down to the export options. If you click on the options, you'll be able to see all of these different options for your export. Starting off with scheduling. You can schedule your export to be on a specific date at a specific time by checking the checkbox here. You can also select to repeat this export, and you can select how many times you'd like it to repeat. You can select if you'd like it to repeat every minute, hour, day, week, month or year. And you can run the export until cancelled, or you can select how many times you'd like this export to run. Then moving on to results file. You can select to add a custom file name for the exported file. So for example, my export. By adding a custom file name, you can actually create a predictable URL to the exported file. I will also leave a link in the description of this video to a tutorial on how specifically that sort of export can be set up. You can add the file name time source to the exported file. So you can select if the time source in the file name will be the started at time, scheduled at time, or saved at time. We also offer an option not to generate an exported file or results file. So this basically means we will not generate a results file if all the exported sheets are empty with just column headers. This is very, very handy if uploading to a server, as you won't be uploading an empty file to a server. You can also choose where you'd like to upload your exported file to, so what FTP or SFTP server you'd like to export your file to. You can then select if you'd like to export the items stored in the order as they come from your Shopify. What this means is that the order that you can see your orders in your Shopify admin, that's how they would be exported in the exported file. However, you must take into account that if you are using the big or enterprise plan with Matrixify, then the speed that comes from these plans will not be leveraged if you do decide to check this option, as this option means that the export will run on only one thread. Whereas the big plan runs on 5 threads by default and the enterprise plan runs on 10 or more. And then for formatting, you can select which format your date columns are in. You can select the time format. You can then also choose if you would like to prefix your values with an apostrophe. So that would be phone numbers, text cells, number cells, or none, whichever you would require for your needs. And once you have set up your export and everything looks as you would like it to, you can then go ahead and press export. And now, as you can see, my 5 orders have been exported, and we can go ahead and download the exported file by clicking on Download Exported File. You'll then be able to see the file downloading and click on it to open it. Here I am in the exported file. In this exported file, you'll be able to see all of the different columns that you've selected to be exported. It should look something like this. Starting at the beginning of the file though, I'm going to zoom in slightly so it's easier to view. You'll be able to see that each order has been exported with multiple rows. Now there is a reason for this, and it doesn't mean that each order has been duplicated. So for example, the first 3 rows here all belong to the same order. In the case of this order and all of the orders in this file, each row for the order has its own function. And the function you'll be able to see in the line type column. Here I am in the file by the line type column. So as you can see, the line type column is here. You'll be able to see that this column has a different value for each row. So taking that first order as an example again, we have a line item row for the order, transaction row, and fulfillment line. Starting with the line item row. The line item row will contain all information about the line item within the order. So if we look to the line columns here, we'll be able to see that they're filled with all of the line item data. Now, if we look to the transaction row for this order, we'll be able to see that the transaction columns are filled with values for this row. So for example, if we now look to the transaction columns in the file, we'll be able to see that they have a value for this transaction row. In my case, there is a sell transaction for this order for the amount of €19, and we'll be able to see all data about that in the transaction columns. And then finally for this order, we have a fulfillment line, and the data about the fulfillment will be filled in the fulfillment columns for the order. So now if we look to the fulfillment columns, we'll be able to see that they contain all data about the fulfillment of this order. In addition, for the fulfillment line, it's also possible to see which exact line item is being fulfilled. So for example, in the fulfillment line that we were just looking at, you can see that the product data is filled in the line columns. So this shows the exact product in the order that's being fulfilled. And if you look to the quantity column for the fulfillment line, you'll be able to see the exact amount that's been fulfilled for this line item. There are many different values that you can have for the line type column. There are line item line types, transaction lines, refund lines, discount lines, shipping lines, and so on. In short, each of these lines have their own function for the order. When exporting, you can also filter this, so you can choose to export only specific line types. So you can choose to export only line item lines for your orders, for example, or you can choose to export line item lines with fulfillment lines. It's completely up to you and whatever works best for your needs. As with any Excel file or CSV file, this is highly customizable, so once exported, you can filter, customize, add formulas to your data in whichever way you would like. You may also see in your exported file that there's an export summary sheet. So the export summary sheet basically contains all data about the export itself, so that would be ranging from the Shopify domain to which filters we use for the export. You'll be able to see all that information here as well. And that really would be it. That is how you can export your orders in bulk using the Matrixify app. We also offer a written tutorial on this topic as well, which I will leave a link to in the description of this video, so you can follow this if you prefer following a written tutorial over a video tutorial. This basically goes over everything I went through in the video, but in written format. And if you have any queries, questions, or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can contact us either via Slack, where we have MyBot, our AI assistant, which will reply to your messages instantly, and if required, our support team will also jump in to help. You can also reach us via email at support@matrixify.app, and both in app and here on our website, we also have our AI support assistant, MyBot, which will answer your questions instantly. And you can get MyBot by clicking on the speech bubble here, and you'll be able to see that MyBot is ready and willing to help. All you need to do is start a conversation, and as you can see here, MyBot is already asking how they can help you. And the same speech bubble can also be found in the Matrixify app itself. And that would be it from me today. That is how you can export your Shopify orders in bulk to an Excel or CSV file using the Matrixify app.